here now. The power of now is here now. The power of you, me, is here to create magic on earth.
Welcome back to the Mastering You podcast with Natalie Newhart. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get to work. All right. Thanks for being back on the show. Today, what we're covering is how to achieve peak vitality in the body. And so, for those of you that did not hear the last episode on what is vitality, I would recommend you actually listen to that one first so you have a good understanding of what vitality is, or at least my understanding of vitality, my experience with vitality. And that will help you really understand, put the tools to use on what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. And before we actually begin, I do just want to, always make sure that it's everything that I say is coming across as this is just my perspective, my experience, my truth, based on what I've been through, what I've experienced. And so, how I've created peak vitality in my body may not be the same way that somebody else has. And so this is really for you to just take in this information and really, resonate with what, take what resonates, discard what doesn't, and, add whatever you want to add from your own personal experience. Then also, I just also want to say that vitality is self-love. Self-love is vitality. And self-love is self-mastery. So from my experience, none of these things are really disconnected. In order to create peak vitality, because it is feeling based, it is 100% required that you have self-love for yourself. A deep, the higher the vitality that you create is a representation of how much love you have for yourself. And it's also going to be a representation of how much you've been able to master yourself on every level, right? On an energetic level, on a physical level, because it's all connected. In order for us to achieve peak vitality in our body, we must learn how to manage and transform different energy inside our body so that we don't feel run down, so that we don't feel sad, so that we don't, and it's not like that we don't feel that, it's just that we don't stay stuck there, so that when people say something to us, it doesn't shake us, it's not, we're not a reaction or always like, in reaction to what something happens in our day or what someone does. So in order to achieve peak vitality in your body, you've got to be at a state where, things and people aren't draining you. So, and that really requires mastery of yourself, mastery of your inner world, of your mind, of your emotions, of your connection to your body, your feeling. So I just wanted to start today's episode off with that because it's all connected. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into it. So how to achieve peak health and vitality in your body. There's going to be 5 components that I have come across, right? That I have experienced. And these are things that I've taken from obviously like my own personal experience of being an athlete and, going through diets and going through all the, the binging and not having vitality essentially. And also a combination of things that I've learned over from the monks, things that I've learned from gurus over in the East. And also just different things that I've learned working with, psychologists, neurologists, et cetera. Okay. So it comes down to these 5 things. Number 1 is we need focus. Okay. So we need focus. We need to have an ability to focus on vitality. We need an ability to focus, to make our focus on feeling good, on health, on physical health and well-being. And this, focusing on vitality, focusing on feeling good, taking actions from this place may come easier for some than others, depending on how you were raised, right? So like for me, for example, I was raised up in this sort of dieting mindset. My mom was a big dieter. She had diet pills and, I got started with dieting at a very young age. So it's been quite the journey to change my mindset from, weight loss and aesthetics and performance to changing it to, feeling good, health and well-being. So those of you guys that have grown up in I want, to the looking good mindset, this is going to be it's going to take some work for you to switch from looking good to feeling good. Okay. And the reason why is because, our world has really been heavily conditioned for us to be so focused on looking a certain, on a specific like visual appearance that we should have, and this has just been driven into us, conditioned into us through social media, through advertisements, through celebrities, and all everybody just kind of praising, always commenting, judging, praising on how people look. And, typically, what we see in advertisements and, on shows and stuff like that, are the people who are getting the attention. It's like this idea that skinny's better, right? If you're skinny, you're more lovable, you're more likable, you're more admirable, you're more worthy, you're better. So this has been, just something that we've been conditioned with. And so as a result, we strive to be skinny because we think that that's is what's going to give us basically like, make us feel more important, more needed, more like we fit in, like we're enough. Okay. And on the flip side, being heavier, having excess weight or calling it fat, whatever you want to call it, we've been conditioned to think that that's not as good. It's not as worthy. You're not as important. You're not as valuable. You're not as admirable. You're not as lovable. Maybe that you're more lazy. Okay. So we've been conditioned to think that skinny means good and larger means bad. Okay. And so many people are willing to sacrifice their everything in their life, their peace of mind, their physical health, their freedom, their relationships, their quality of life in order to look a few pounds slimmer. Okay. And so, we've been conditioned, very heavily conditioned into a state of fear of being heavier, right? Of carrying a few extra pounds. And this fear is actually what causes us to actually gain weight. So it's a catch-22, because when we are so afraid of gaining weight because of these, these like sort of ideologies that we've attached to, having excess weight, what happens is we try to control, right? We're so afraid of gaining weight. So we try to control and we cling to a certain body type, to a certain visual appearance. We try to force ourselves to lose weight, to always continue to be like a certain leanness, right? Because we think that this, if we look this way, we're better, right? We're enough. We fit in, we love ourselves more, etc. But when we start to attach ourselves to a certain visual appearance, that drives us to ignore our feelings, right? Because we don't eat when we're hungry. We restrict certain foods from our diet. We don't listen to our cravings. We force our body to work out when it's tired, and what happens is this dieting way may work for a certain time. You may lose a few pounds, but eventually you can't go on like that forever. You can't hang on. Right. And so what happens is we binge, we burn out. And this happens with everyone, and how quick it happens to you it's going to be just dependent, for some people, they can, hang on for a year or 2 years. Some people can only hang on for like a week to these dieting kind of mentalities, these dieting, actions or behaviors. And when we flip flop, when we yo-yo, and we binge or we burn out, we think that there's something wrong with us. We think that we can't be trusted. And so what happens is we just, we're just like, see, I can't be trusted. I can't trust myself. And so we hop back on a plan. We're like, I got to get back on the plan. So we get on the training plan, we get on the diet plan, and in order to keep us like, quote unquote, in line. Right. And then this cycle just continues. So And it becomes like harder and harder for us to actually lose weight, and let alone to feel good, because we're just always living in this state of fear and panic and anxiety around food and weight and exercise, etc. And what happens, like I said, it becomes harder and harder for us to lose weight, especially women, because we're so much more sensitive to stress. And that's because the body starts to remember, right? It remembers how we're trying to starve it. And, and what happens is, like, when it's in survival mode, it does everything it can to conserve energy. So even though, like, you could be working out till you're blue in the face and not actually losing weight, and like I said, especially women. And so this is why the apps and the watches, like, they don't work when they tell you how many calories you're burning. Like, it's not real, because it's not taking into consideration the state, the state of your metabolism, the state of your nervous system. Is it in a contracted fight or flight survival state, or is it an expansive, things are flowing, rest and digest state, which is where all the energy, all the calories are actually burned. And so yeah, when the body's in this stress survival state, when we're forcing it to work out or restricting calories, or we're just like always in anxiety around food and, fearful of food and all this, it has no reason to really burn calories. Okay. It doesn't matter, like I said, what your watcher app says. They are all useless, actually, because most of them are just causing more harm than good, because they just add to the anxiety. They add to your need to control everything, to burn X calories, to close the rings out on your app, right? Instead of listening to giving your body what it really needs, which may be like a bath or a nap or reading a book, like something that actually is going to be restorative. And so in a world obsessed on looking a certain way and measuring calories and steps and, right and wrong foods, we need to start to train a different focus. We need to start to look at exercise and food and rest in our body differently. We need to start to train it to focus on feeling good. We need to train it to look inward instead of just looking at the outside physical appearance of our body. We need to go inward and really take an assessment there. How do I feel? What do I need? What does my body need to feel its best? Okay. So that's number one, is we've got to start to train a focus on feeling good. What food will make me feel my best? What exercise will make me feel my best? As far as like today, actually, it's pretty funny. Today I actually went to the bottom of the ski hill, right? And I do this uphill skiing, which is like, you just like hike uphill basically with skis on. And I actually got to the base. I walked to the base and I was just like, you know what? I'm just not feeling it. And like, I had a feeling like, I'm just kind of feeling a low energy today. And but I was kind of just like in my routine. I was like, oh, well, maybe like my energy will pick up. And I got to the base and I set my skis down. And, before I put them on, I was just like, you know what? I just don't have it. Like today's just, I feel like I need something different. I feel like I need to go sit by nature, sit by the trees. I feel like I need to maybe go into the sauna. So I literally just like picked up my skis and walked back to my truck. And so this is me listening to feeling, right? This is me putting my focus on feeling good as opposed to looking good. And the funny thing is that we think that, oh, I'm not gonna look the way I want to look, or I'm not gonna be light and strong and powerful if I don't force myself to exercise. But actually it's the opposite, because if I would have forced myself to ski up that hill today, my energy would be so much lower for the rest of today, and it'll take a hit tomorrow. And not only that, because I'm overspending my energy, I'm like hitting this tipping point where anytime we overspend our energy, that's going to lead to overeating, right? Over consuming food later today, or maybe tomorrow, tonight, whatever. So it doesn't, we think we're getting ahead when we just like try to work out more or eat less. But it doesn't, we're not getting ahead. There's always this energetic balance. So this is why it's so important for us to really start to tune in to feel, how do I feel and what's going to make me feel my best? Because the better we get, the more we master at being energetically balanced and keeping ourselves in balance, which is, we are naturally balanced. We we just fuck it up, right? Like we just screw it up by trying to force ourselves to, look a certain way or like eat a certain way, etc. So the more that we can start to just listen to our body, the more imbalance we'll feel, the more energy we'll have, the more energy we have, the less we need to eat, the more we want to move. Like, and so the looks are a byproduct of feeling good. Okay. So because I understand, like, it's not that I want to look a certain way. It's that I want to feel light and vibrant and strong and powerful. And I want to be able to, basically I want to have a body that can do anything, that's really capable of doing anything that I ask it to. And so, and with that, my body's going to shape in a certain way. There's going to be a certain body composition when I'm engaging in activities that allow it, that make it feel vibrant, strong, and powerful. But again, like I said, the focus is on feeling good, not looking good. So we've got to retrain that focus. So that's number one. Number two is we need a vision. So we actually need a vision to focus on. So we need, number one, a focus. And then number two, we need something to focus on. So it's like asking yourself, like, what is my vision? What is my vision of vitality? Excuse me. What is my, what is that? How does that person look? How does that person feel? And again, it's not like, we're not saying that the looks are the most important. It's just like, let's just put a vision together, so that it becomes like, rather than this like sort of abstract idea, it's like, I can see it, right? This is where everything is formed. Everything is formed in this energetic layer of first the imagination. It's, this is, anybody who's created anything in their life, it always started with like a thought, like an idea. And then the more crystal clear that we become about that, the more, and the more energy we put behind it, the more intensity, the more fire we put behind it, the more it becomes real, the more we manifest it. So we need the vision to start with. And like, this is why, what was I going to say? Like, I always tell my clients that, I always ask them, I'm like, what is there's a certain time of the year where women, especially, like, they have no problem losing weight, right? They have no problem like getting into shape. And that time of year is when they usually get married, right? And there's a reason why it happens like around this time, right? Because they have a vision of them being in the wedding dress. They have a vision of, all the pictures that they're going to be taking, how happy they are and how they want to look and how it's going to feel. And they have a vision of like, oh, they're going on their honeymoon trip and they're in the bathing suit. And so it's like, they have this vision and there's a lot of emotional intensity tied to it. And so that's what really fuels them to take those actions, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't matter like how bad they're feeling, they're going to get themselves to the gym, like no matter what, every single day. But what happens, because they're taking a dieting approach, because it's all about looks, what happens is, after the wedding or after the honeymoon, it all goes away, right? It's not sustainable. It's not, because it's done for these physical appearance reasons, as opposed to, I want to feel good. It's done from a place of like, not fear, but it's like, I'm only going to like myself if I look a certain way, as opposed to I like myself now. I'm not going to take the best care of myself now. It's coming from a place of love, that feeling good, that vitality approach. But we need this vision, right? We need a picture in the mind, and it's going to be our North Star to orient to, but also fuel us with that fire. It's going to give us, it'll be our North Star to give us direction and guidance. Okay. Vision that I make, does this align with my vision of vitality? Like today, for example, when I did the skiing thing, my vision of vitality, it incorporates me listening to my body on a real deep level, like being so connected to myself that I never step against my feelings. I never force myself to do something that I really don't want to do, because like I said, there's always going to be a backswing there. And so I want to feel my best. I want to take care of myself, my best. And so that's my, that would be, now it's just become automatic. But in the beginning, I used to always, like with my clients, I always tell them to align with your vision, go to your vision to help you understand, do I take this action or not? And so the clearer you are with your vision, the better, because then it becomes a very clear, yes, I do this. No, I do not. Okay. So but it's getting really clear, like, this person of vitality, you in perfect and as your perfect self in perfect form, you're and feeling your absolute best. How does she, how does she move? How does he move? How does he or she go through the day? Are you rushing from one thing to the next, or are you calm? How does this person of vitality eat? What are they eating? What are their beliefs around food? Do they need a meal plan? Or do they eat intuitively? Do they eat slowly? Do they eat mindfully? Do they taste their food? Do they allow them? Do they listen to their cravings and honor that? How do they feel when they go to a restaurant? Like, do they feel like, oh, I got to have this food because it's my only chance? Or are they always, making decisions based on what's going to make me feel my best? And sometimes that is going to be like, oh, I'm going to have a glass of wine or some ice cream or, pizza or whatever. But it's really understanding when to make that decision, like understanding yourself on such a deep level. So it's really getting inside this person, and if you, in the beginning, this can be a little difficult because you've never been that person, right? Which is why you're not that person. So for me, when I first started, I looked at people who embodied a similar vision that I wanted, a similar vision of vitality. And I studied them. So, as you start to create this, or as as you start to create this version of your vision of vitality, you'll naturally start to just, adjust and fine tune who it is that you want to be. What is your actual vision? So just know that it's okay that you don't know everything. Like just focus on what you do know, focus on what you do want, focus on the way you do want to feel, what that looks like, the relationship you want to have with food, with exercise, with your self-care, treating yourself, with rest, etc. And then once you start working towards it, you're going to need to adjust and fine tune it, because like, for example, for me, when I first started this journey, I thought vitality, I included it to look a certain way. I was like, oh, vitality means I'm this lean, right? And I made that part of my vision. I was like, it's all like, I want to look like this, and that's going to be vitality. And what happened is after a year or two trying to upkeep this visual appearance, I paid the price, right? It wasn't sustainable. I didn't feel good. I binged frequently. I eventually yo-yoed and I gained weight. And so this is why I'm now like, I understand vitality is not a look. It is not a look. It's not a performance. But I had to go through that to understand what vitality is not. So I can understand what vitality is and what it is I do want, because now I realize like, I definitely don't want to, I don't want to look a certain way. It's not about looking a certain way. I definitely want to feel my best. Feeling my best is going to allow me to look good naturally, but it's not coming from a place of force. Okay. And that way it feels effortless. And when it's effortless, it is sustainable. Quick interruption. Hey guys, Natalie Newhart here. If you resonate with my message and would like to learn more about how to master your behaviors, create peak vitality in your body, and live a more effortless life, then click the link in the show notes to set up a 30-minute coaching call with me. On our call, we'll take an assessment of what's standing in your way from becoming your best self and the steps to overcome them. Okay, back to the show. So that's number 2. Number 3 is we need to slow down. Okay. And number 3, 4, 5 are actually going to be like they're basically the ingredients of self-love. Okay. So number 3 is we got to slow down in order to create vitality. So we need to see what's standing in our way from becoming that 2.0 version of ourselves, from becoming that vision of vitality. Okay. From stepping into that person. And so we can't kill our old patterns, the patterns that are keeping us from that person, if we can't see them. All right. So we need to be able to slow down enough so that we can see the patterns, the beliefs, the behaviors, the feelings, all these things that are standing in our way from taking the best care of ourselves, from creating vitality in our body. So it's asking ourselves, we need to there's certain things that we're doing that are standing in our way. So it's like becoming aware. Why do I feel like shit all the time? Why don't I trust myself with food? Why do I feel the need to be so busy? Why am I so attached to looking a certain way? Why don't I take better care of myself? Why don't I, stand up and voice my opinion or express what I want instead of just going with whatever everybody else wants to do? Or why don't I, ask for help, so that I can take more time for myself? We got to understand ourselves on such a deep level, because there's these underlying, very deep, hidden emotional patterns and beliefs that are driving our actions and are driving our behaviors that are keeping us from this vision of vitality. Okay. And we have to see when we're in these things, when we're in these patterns, in these beliefs, in these feelings, and study them so that we can start to clean them out and see when they're active. And we start to while they're active, that's when we start to retrain them, rewire them. And this is what we do inside the self-mastery program. So the more aware we are of them when they pop up, then the more ability we have to disengage in them. And so that means that instead of doing the same thing that we always do, we start to take different actions. Instead of forcing myself up that ski hill, I start to take a different action. Like, what is the loving thing here to do? How do I feel? Instead of being, letting fear drive me, fear of, or like unworthiness drive me, because that's what usually drives the need to looking good, is like feeling, oh, I'm not worthy unless I look a certain way. I'm not lovable unless I look a certain way. Instead of allowing that pattern, which is something that I've been taught, from a very young age, instead of allowing that pattern to continue, I see it, I understand it, and I shift away from it. I'm like, oh, that's not me anymore. And I also know what that creates. It doesn't create what I want. Okay. So the thing is that if you haven't done this internal work, this inner work, most people are completely unaware of when these feelings and these beliefs are driving your actions, and because they're just unconscious. They're just like who you are. Essentially, that's what you think. You think they're who you are, but they're actually like these imprints. There's like it's like these codes, or like these patterns that you've taken on from like your parents and society and stuff like that. And because you're just always in it, like because it's so normal, it's really hard to see yourself when you're there. So this is why it's so important to do the inner work, and, especially to have like a mentor or a coach to help you see yourself, because we are the hardest to see. And so like, yes, we need to do the inner work, but part of that inner work is learning how to slow down, right? Instead of being so go, 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 do in that kind of mode. Because if we're always in that mode, that go, go, go mode, that we have no space. There's no space for us to see or feel when we're in these patterns. And if we can't see it, when it's happening, then, that moment has passed and we're already in the action, and we're already doing the same thing that we did, that we always do. We're just continue to repeat the pattern, right? So nothing changes. So, slowing down is so important. So important. Slowing down allows us to interrupt the pattern. And honestly, guys, like, I'll tell you, the first 5 years that I started doing this work, I missed this part. Like, I thought it was just about like doing a meditation every day and like doing these little like practices and stuff like that. And I wasn't actually slowing down my life. And so a lot of these things like really just continued on. So slowing down is so important. And, because if it doesn't, it's slowing down, like I said, it allows us to interrupt that pattern. It doesn't interrupt the pattern completely just by slowing down and becoming aware, right? It doesn't, just because I slow down and I'm aware that I'm, driving from this place of unworthiness or fear of being judged, or, like fear of disconnection. If I ask for, if I tell the husband that I don't want to cook tonight, like, whatever comes up for me, if I don't, like, just because I'm aware of it doesn't mean it changes anything. So that's just the first step, is to slow down so you can be aware. And then the next step is being able to make the change, right? To shift, to change the belief, to change the feeling. And that's where the vision really helps and benefits us, because it gives us a reason, gives us the fuel, the fire to take that, to get us to take a different action, to ask for help when we don't want to cook dinner and we really just want to take a bath, or when we, when I don't want to go up the hill and I want to just go sit in the sauna. Like, it requires a strong will, right? And knowing like, okay, like this is what I'm going to do now. And this takes time. So, but again, slowing down is the precursor to that, slowing down and being aware. And so, yeah, so, and that's where, self-love really comes into play, because self-love is what gets us to do that new action, to take that, to ask for that help, or to take that, to not go up the ski hill, or to, to drive slower, or to not cram as many things into your day. Self-love is what gets us to do something different. Because that's what's going to be required in order to get us to feel our best and to create our best life. So that's number 3. Number 4 is we need to listen deeply. So once we've slowed down and gotten out of our panicked, or stressed or sad or cluttered emotional state, then we have to have the ability to hear what the body is saying. Okay. So it's like, okay, how do I feel? What do I need? And what do I want? So once we've slowed down, we have to start to, this is where we start to listen to our feelings. We have to start to go in and see, how do I feel? What is present? Okay. And what do I need then? What do I actually need? And what do I want? So I'm going to go through each one of these. So how do I feel? Oh, maybe I'm feeling, for example, I have this client that I think she makes like 2 dinners a night, right? She makes one for her and her husband, and then the second one is like for her son. And so, by this point, it's like she's tired, like she's drained. She works a full-time job. She she comes home, she walks the dog, she cooks dinner, she cleans up the dinner, she takes a shower, she cooks another dinner for the son, and then all that. So, and so when, we had this conversation recently, and I was like, why do you feel like you got to cook and clean for your son unless you actually want to do it? It's like, and, a fear is going to, fear is what comes up, like fear of creating like disharmony in the house, right? Because the son will get upset, and then the husband will get upset. So it's like a fear of like confrontation, and and there might be different fears for different people, right? So maybe it's like fear of like or like fear of like disconnection, like feeling disconnected from your son, because it's like, I'm not, I'm not doing something, I'm not cooking him like the food or whatever. So there could be like any sort of emotion that comes up. So, but it's being aware of like, how do I feel, and, what is driving me, starting to go into that, like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I feel like I need to cook the second dinner? And then it's, coming from that place of understanding and checking in, okay, what do I actually need, and maybe what you need is, actually, let me back up a little bit. Okay. So that was just like one example of like with the dinner thing. Okay. But it's also, it could be just like, oh, I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling hot. I'm feeling cold. I'm feeling hungry. I'm feeling thirsty. I'm feeling tight. So whatever stands out to you, it's like being aware when we slow down, it's starting to tune in to see, how do I feel? And again, like this is going to take time to build this skill, because most people have been completely disconnected and deconditioned from feeling their body. Right? Because we've always been so busy. We're so busy on, just doing things throughout our day, and we're relying on apps and plans and coaches to tell us what to do, instead of actually listening and to how, to our innate cues of how our body feels. So, and this is how we, start to create peak vitality in the body is again, like I said, it's always about that balance. So we want to keep our body in a balanced state. And in order to keep it at its peak state of, of balance, then we've got to learn how to, when we're feeling a certain way, we've learned how to give ourselves what we need when we need it. But the first step is, how do I feel? Okay. And like I said, it could be an emotional thing. It could be a physical thing that you feel. And then the second question is, what do I need, at this moment? So maybe I need food. I need a hot bath. I need cold water. I need, a nap. I need, a slow walk. I need some fresh air, whatever it is. Right. And so these are just like kind of like the basic things that we need to get your body back in balance, for you to start to feel, okay, I feel good. Right. And this, yeah. So this is like, this has to come before the next step, because if we don't listen to our needs, then it's really hard. Like, this is where we run into trouble, right? Because if we're not listening to what we need when we need it, this is what creates that energetic disbalance. It creates a backswing, right? So it's like, if I don't listen to the fact that I'm hungry, so I force myself to not eat. If I'm not eating during the day, what happens is I overeat at night, right? If I'm not slowing down during the day and giving myself time to give myself the rest that I need, then what happens is at nighttime, I feel drained. I'm energetically drained, right? And what happens is like, and then you feel like burnt out. You feel irritable. You feel stressed. And this is where over time, if you don't listen to these needs over and over and over, they manifest as physical symptoms in the body. We create health issues, we create digestion issues, hypothyroid, adrenal fatigue, metabolic damage, all these things, right? And, illness, sickness, headaches, everything. Okay. Stomach aches. And so it's no different than a car, right? It's like the car needs maintenance. It needs gas. It needs oil. It needs, it needs to idle instead of just being full throttle all the time. Or like, for example, like, a phone, it needs to be charged, right? But if you're charging it and you're running all these apps all the time, like you have all these windows open, it can't really be charged. So it's like, it's really listening to, in order for the state of the phone to be at its strongest, to last its longest and to function optimally, it's got to be taken care of. It's got to turn off every once in a while. It's got to, you got to close the windows. And and same thing, like maybe another example is like Wi-Fi, right? So we all know that feeling of like, when we have, like, for me at least, I have like 100 windows open, right? And so what happens is when you have too many, or like, I guess on a computer, when you have too many windows open, like what happens is the computer starts to overheat, right? It starts to shut down, and obviously you can't send your emails and you can't, load pages and stuff like that. So this is what I mean by, we've got to start to take care of our needs. We got to start closing those tabs so that our body starts feeling good. And when we start feeling good, we start moving more, we start eating less, we create vitality. So that's why it's so important for us to ask, how do I feel? What do I need? And then the third question is, what do I want? So this is an interesting question, because, and this can be anything, right? Like it can be like, what do I want to do? Maybe what do I want to have? What do I want to feel? How do I want to feel right now? It's really asking like, what's my heart calling for right now? What sounds nourishing to me? What sounds fun to me? And maybe it's like, oh, I feel like drawing. I feel like writing. I feel like moving my body. I feel like connecting with a friend. I feel like cleaning. I feel like meditating, or maybe I feel like eating oranges all day, or I feel like stretching, like whatever it is. Right. And it could just be like, oh, I just want to feel relaxed, right now, or I want to laugh, or I want to feel calm. So the point is starting to respect and honor yourself so that you're never going against your own will, meaning anytime that we're doing something that we tell ourselves that we need to do or should do or have to do, all of a sudden those things get super heavy. So it's like anytime that you tell yourself, for example, like I need to work out, or I have to work out, or I should go work out, right? Or like this morning when I was like, oh, I should go uphill, like I should go skinning, anytime we say those should, need to, or have to's, like that activity immediately becomes draining for us, right? It becomes twice as hard. It consumes twice as much energy. And it goes with anything in life, right? It can be like your job. If you don't enjoy your job and you tell yourself, oh, I have to go to work, yeah, that's going to be super draining. Like that's going to be tough, right? Or like I need to clean the house, or I need to cook dinner, or whatever it is. Like those things are going to suck the energy out of you, right? And what happens is it makes it really difficult for us to recover, because it's like twice as draining. It requires twice as much effort, twice as much energy. And so it'll like, if we have a job, like for example, if, people who, I've several clients that like their job is very draining, right? They don't want to go to their job. They don't like their job. And so what happens is, because it's so draining, it requires so much more energy. And, it like by the time when they have a day off, the weekend off, it's like they don't even want to do anything, because they need to recover from the job, just go back to the job, right? But if it's something that you're enjoying, like if your job is nourishing you, then it brings you energy rather than takes away energy from you. So like this work, I love what I do. I love talking to you guys. I love, recording this. I love sharing this information. I love coaching, people on how to create this vitality and master themselves. And so it gives me energy when I hop on a call. It doesn't take energy from me. So that's super important to make sure that your life is lined up in a way where you are asking yourself all throughout the day those questions of how do I feel, what do I need, and then that third question is what do I want, what do I want to do, and ideally having a life that allows you to follow your desires instead of having a bunch of things that you're doing that you don't want to do. Okay. I'm just reading my notes here. Okay. Yeah. And so when we're able to follow our wants, right, like I said, it brings us energy instead of it drains us energy. And this is where we can come into flow state, right? This is where we run into, a more enjoyable, light, peaceful life. It becomes essentially effortless living. Okay. And so when we're in this effortless living state, there's very little stress in our system. And so we're not spending all this energy doing things that we don't really want to do. And when we're not spending all this energy, we actually don't need as much food, and we have more energy that we want to move and take care of ourselves. So, and then obviously, the result of that is a lower body fat percentage, right? So, yeah. So, but this takes a lot of practice, right? It takes a lot of letting go of things that we are trying to control in our life, and a lot of there's a lot of cleaning up that we have to do in order to align our life in this way. Okay. But this is where we start to build this vitality, is starting to, slow down and then ask ourselves, listening to our feelings. How do I feel? What do I need? What do I want? Okay. And then the last piece is boundaries, like saying yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. And so what I mean by that is like not being afraid to say no to things or people to things that you don't want to do, or to people you don't want to meet. Okay. And saying yes when something feels right to you, when it feels expansive, and saying no when it doesn't. So, for example, like me going up to the hill this morning, it's like, you know what? Like, I'm not feeling it. I'm going to say no. Or, I don't know, like if a friend asked me to go meet her for lunch today, and I just would rather just kind of stay at home and read a book, or I just wanted to, stretch or something, I would say no. I'd put that boundary there, like, no, I'm not going to go. And I'm doing that for myself, right? Like, so that it's like I'm taking care of my needs, because that's just not what I want to do right now. Other times, maybe it's like, yeah, that feels awesome. I'll totally meet you for lunch. Or another example is like, like cooking dinner for the husband, when it's like you're not feeling it, when you don't want to cook, it's like, no, I don't want to cook tonight. Can you cook, or can we just like pick something up for, on the way home? It's learning how to have that amount of respect and self-love for yourself, to stand up for yourself and express your desires, and being okay to say no when you don't want to do something. And this is where fear is going to come up, and all these excuses of like, oh, well, I need to, or, well, what if he, gets really upset, like your husband, or, your significant other, or, there's all these fears that will come up from standing up for yourself. And this is what we need to clean out so that you can start to take the best care of yourself. Right. And like I said, because what's going to come up is there's going to be some type of fear that usually is blocking you from, really taking care of yourself. And it's like usually a fear of being judged, or fear of not being needed, a fear of creating disconnection, something along those lines. Right. And many people are doing things to feel loved, to feel needed, to feel important, to feel liked, right? They have their love placed outside of themselves by, doing things for others instead of doing things for themselves. Like, oh, I'm going to cook dinner. I'm going to cook cookies for, my kids, or, my family, instead of like what you really want to do, or what would be really more nourishing for you is like maybe going to take a bath or something like that, but it's like they place their love in doing things for others instead of doing things for themselves. And so this is where we really need to hunt ourselves and understand why we're doing the things we're doing. Why don't we put ourselves first? Why don't we feel deserving of love? Why won't I say no? What am I afraid of happening if I did? Okay. And yeah, and so that's basically that's going to be it. So that's going to be the 5 things. It comes down to the 5 things to create peak vitality in the body is we need that focus on feeling good. We need to have something to focus on, a vision of vitality. Okay. We need to slow down so that we can start to feel. That's number 3. And then number 4 is we actually have to feel, like, listen deeply. How do I feel? What do I need? What do I want? And then we've got to be able to say yes and no, right? Yes to the things that we do want to do and no to the things that I don't, so that we're not overriding our feelings and putting ourselves in that constantly drained state. Okay. And this is why self-love is a main ingredient, is basically the same thing as vitality, right? We've got to learn how to train this self-love, because what stands in our way from creating these things, from doing these 5 things, is number 1, trying to control, right? Trying to control our day, trying to make it go a certain way, trying to control our body, trying to control our food, right? Instead of listening to our feelings, we think like things need to be a certain way, right? I've got to eat like this, got to work out like this, my day's got to go like this, I got to do my morning routine like this, and my night's got to go like this. And so we just force ourselves to follow this like routine way of being. So that will stand in your way from creating peak vitality. Number 2, that will stand in your way is trying to seek your worth in doing things and, accomplishing things. It's like, oh, I'm only, I feel valuable when I work out every day, or I only feel, valuable or important when I'm doing things for others, right? I'm like really helping others, or I'm taking care of all the, cleaning the house and cooking and doing all these things. It's like we place our feeling of importance, in all these things that doesn't allow us to take care of ourselves. So there's a lack of self-worth there. And then number 3 that stands in our way from vitality is trying to seek love by doing things for others instead of ourselves. So it's similar but different, right? It's like you get your love, you feel loved when you do things for others as opposed to doing things for yourself. So there's a feeling of lack of self-love there. Okay. So this is why it's so important that we have to go in and self-inquire and figure out, like, why don't I have love for myself? Why don't I feel like I'm worthy of putting myself first? Because it goes real deep, guys. Like, it really does stem from childhood and just the way we were raised, and our beliefs from society and stuff like that. And so if you really want to feel your best, you have to learn how to develop a rich and profound appreciation for yourself, respect for yourself, which means that we've got to get rid of all these beliefs and patterns that are keeping you from being that person. Okay. And so this is what we do inside my self-mastery program. I have both a one-on-one and a group coaching program. So, if you're ready to, if you're wanting to master yourself, if you're wanting to feel your best, if you want to, create peak vitality in your body, if you want to feel great, and feel empowered, feel empowered around food and in your life, around just knowing yourself and knowing how to take the best care of yourself, then, definitely reach out to me, send me a message on Instagram, or you can email me, and we can see if, my program would be a good fit for you. So that's going to be it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Much, much love. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mastering You podcast with me, Natalie Newhart. I hope you're feeling more empowered and inspired on how to master your mind, your body, and your life. If you don't want to miss your next training with me, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you consume your podcasts. And definitely connect with me on Instagram. I'm natalie.newhart on Instagram. Much, much love to you all. Until next time.
The power of love is here now. The power of now is here now. The power of you, me, is here to create magic on us.